You lock your door. You turn off your lights. You sink into your bed, desperate for a single moment of absolute silence. But the moment your head hits the pillow, a chaotic, uninvited screaming match explodes inside your skull. Voices telling you you're falling behind, reminding you of an awkward conversation from 3 years ago, replaying a TikTok loop you watched hours ago. You're exhausted, yet your mind is running a dynamic marathon on high-voltage fuel. Here is the terrifying paradox. If you own your mind, why can't you just turn it off? Why does it feel like a rogue operating system running background programs without your permission? We've been fed a massive evolutionary lie. Modern neuroscience and elite tech algorithms have built a matrix around your biological identity, conditioning you to believe that your brain is the biological factory generating your thoughts. But it's not. It's an antenna. Your brain doesn't create thoughts. It intercepts them. I've spent years analyzing this modern sickness, watching young, brilliant minds completely burn out while doing nothing but staring at a glass screen. You think you are suffering from a lack of motivation or bad habits. That's exactly what the system wants you to believe, so you keep buying self-help books and opening meditation apps that don't work. I used to sit in my room for hours, trapped in a brutal loop of overthinking, feeling like a failure because my mind wouldn't stop racing. It felt like trying to fight a ghost in a dark room. Every single thought felt deeply personal, heavy, and destructive. Until I looked closer at the physics of how a radio works. When a radio plays a depressing song, you don't blame the plastic box. You understand it's just picking up a signal floating through the air. What if your anxiety, your deep existential fatigue, and that paralyzing fear of the future aren't actually your thoughts at all? What if your biological hardware is simply tuned into a deeply toxic, high-frequency corporate broadcast? Right now, you are being hijacked. Your exhaustion isn't a biological malfunction. It's a hardware overload. In the next few minutes, we are going to strip away the illusion of the ego. We will dismantle the scientific and spiritual matrix, tracing this code back to the ultimate ancient realization. The moment you stop claiming the signal as yours, the matrix loses all power over you. Let's rewrite your system code. Think about your typical Tuesday evening. You tell yourself you're just going to relax. You wash the dishes, trying to find a moment of peace, but your hands are on autopilot while your brain is elsewhere, arguing with an imaginary boss. You sit on the couch, open Netflix, and scroll for 30 minutes because nothing feels right enough to satisfy the hunger in your chest. Then you fall into the smartphone trap. You open an app, swipe down to refresh, and just like that, 2 hours vanish. You feel cheap, hollow, and dirty. I know this trap intimately. I spent years in it. I used to think I was the one making those choices. I thought my lack of willpower was a personal defect. In the United States, we are obsessed with individual control. We are trained to think of our minds as private fortresses. We say, my anxiety, my depression, my thoughts. We treat the brain like an isolated computer running its own software. But during my darkest periods of mental exhaustion, when my mind felt like a chaotic browser with 100 tabs open and music playing somewhere in the background, I realized something. I wasn't the programmer. I was just the screen displaying the glitch. Like Neo in the Matrix, I was staring at the green code cascade, believing I was the one walking through the streets, when in reality, the simulation was walking through me. We are constantly bathing in a soup of invisible frequencies, and our brains are helplessly tuned into the channel of collective panic. Let me share a raw realization that changed everything for me. One morning, after a sleepless night of overthinking, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city skyline. I saw thousands of Wi-Fi routers, cell towers, and power lines slicing through the air, and it hit me like a physical blow. If I turned on a radio at that exact moment, I could instantly play heavy metal, a political debate, or a tragic news broadcast. Those signals were literally passing through my chest, through my head, every single second. Our modern environment is a high-density battlefield of engineered panic. Silicon Valley algorithms are specifically designed to broadcast high-frequency dopamine signals that trigger your survival instincts. They want you insecure, angry, and greedy, because an insecure brain is a perfect consumer. When you experience sudden anxiety, it is rarely your own. You are simply intercepting the ambient dread of a civilization running out of time. In classical Buddhist psychology, this is known as the flow of the collective alaya vijnana, the storehouse consciousness. It is a vast, invisible ocean of historical memories, traumas, and desires. Your ego is not a solid entity. It is just a tiny, fragile raft floating on this ocean. When the ocean gets stormy, the raft shakes. But we make the fatal mistake of pointing to the waves and saying, "This is my storm, I am a bad captain." No, you are just a passenger catching the spray. Have you ever heard of the ultimate cosmic bet? In Eastern mythology, there is a legendary figure who embodies the restless, chaotic nature of our thoughts. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. Armed with a staff that could shatter mountains and the ability to leap 108,000 miles in a single somersault, Wukong believed he was completely invincible. He challenged the heavens, mocked the gods, and declared that no power in the universe could contain him. He was the ultimate rebel, much like our modern egos, constantly striving, racing, and bragging about his achievements. Then he met the Buddha. The Buddha made him a wager. "If you can leap out of my palm, I will hand you the throne of heaven." Wukong sneered. How could a giant celestial being trap a creature who could leap across galaxies? He leaped. He soared through the dark void, past burning stars and nebulas, flying at a speed that tore the fabric of space. He reached the absolute edge of the universe, where he saw 5 massive pink stone pillars holding up the sky. To prove he was there, he proudly scribbled his name on the center pillar, peed on it, and laughed. He had won. But when he returned, the Buddha simply held up his hand. There, written on his middle finger, was Wukong's graffiti. Wukong had never left the hand. He had flown at the speed of light, yet he remained exactly where he started. This myth is a psychological mirror of your life. Your ego is Wukong. Every day, you attempt to escape your anxiety, depression, and digital exhaustion by jumping. You jump from job to job, from relationship to relationship, from one scrolling session to the next. You run 108,000 miles inside your head, thinking, if I just solve this one problem, if I just work harder, I will be free. But you never escape the underlying dread. Why? Because you are trying to outrun your mind, using the very mind you are trying to escape. This is the internal war, the tragic trap of the modern American seeker. We are obsessed with control. We treat overthinking as a survival tool, a weapon to conquer the future. But the more you fight the waves, the more you drown in the water. In classical Buddhist psychology, Wukong represents the monkey mind, the sixth consciousness. It is incredibly fast, analytical, and powerful. It can build empires, write code, and navigate complex social matrices. But it has one fatal flaw. It is completely blind to its own nature. It thinks it is the ruler of reality, when in truth, it is just a passenger in a vast, infinite field of consciousness called the eighth consciousness, the alaya vijnana. The 5 pillars Wukong found at the edge of the universe were actually the 5 skandhas, the biological filters of form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness itself. These are the 5 fingers of the biological receiver. No matter how far your thoughts travel, they are always bounded by the biological limitations of your receiver. You can't think your way out of thinking. The signal cannot rewrite the radio. The moment of the big twist is recognizing this boundary. You don't need to defeat the monkey. You don't need to chop off its head. You simply need to realize that the hand supporting the monkey is yours. The palm of the Buddha is not a trap. It is the infinite field of empty, loving awareness that hosts the monkey's wild dance. When you stop fighting your thoughts and instead rest as the palm, the war ends. The monkey lies down and rests. You are no longer the chaotic signal. You are the infinite space through which the signal passes. Stop trying to fix your thoughts. Stop trying to silence your mind. Here is the ultimate payoff, the glitch in the matrix that they never wanted you to find. You are not the thinker. Read that code again. You are not the one generating the thoughts. You are the space in which the thoughts occur. The voice in your head, it is just a biological algorithm, a default mode network on autopilot, spitting out predictive text based on your past trauma, your social media feed, and your biological conditioning. It is a machine doing machine things. When you realize this, the entire illusion of the ego collapses. You don't need to debug the system. You just need to realize you are the user, not the software. For years, I fought my brain. I tried to meditate it into submission. I tried to force my anxiety to disappear. It was like a radio trying to violently shake its own speakers to change the channel. It's exhausting. But one evening, during a moment of profound burnout, I stopped. I just sat there. And instead of trying to stop the thoughts, I asked myself a simple question. Who is observing this anxiety? In that split second, the wave of dread was still there, but it was no longer me. It was just a signal passing through. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The heavy weight of being the manager of my life completely evaporated. You aren't a bad captain of a stormy ship. You are the ocean itself, perfectly safe, unaffected by the waves on the surface. This language shift instantly breaks the identification. You switch from being the chaotic wave to being the still, observing ocean. You are the empty sky. Let the thoughts drift away.